it felt, I mean, I can't really overstate this, but it felt like somebody was pouring honey all over my brain and it was running down through every nerve. It was just this euphoria that, we try, NDEers try, but we never get there. It's just this joy, this release. I felt like all my atoms were expanded and there was this cool breeze blowing through all of them. And it was just this refreshing something I'd been waiting for, just this release from the container.
Today, we're talking with near-death experiencer Bill Letson. Welcome in, Bill. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Oh, it is such a thrill for me to talk with you because I know your story and it's fascinating to me. And I think that it had a tremendous impact on your perception of yourself and the world around you when you came back. So why don't you go
Yes,
ahead
that's correct.
and why don't you go ahead and start in and tell us what happened that day that you died?
Okay, it was in 1994 and I was a firefighter and I got sick at work and I ended up in the hospital a few days later and some things went wrong and I went out in the afternoon and went into intensive care and I was out cold. And then sometime during that night, I just left my body. I was no longer Bill. Clearly had no intentions of being human. And I was flying through this star-filled realm. I've said that every time. It was just these stars, orbs, if people are getting more clued into this orb thing, this energy thing. And they were so welcoming. I was completely ecstatic. I was completely euphoric. Felt like I'd been let out of a hot, stuffy closet, and I was this huge, expanded cloud, like I went on forever, and I was just flying through this sea of stars. They're all different colors, and they all had this flowing energy or messages, or it was like, it was like this music or colors or light or energy. And I was like parading through them. And the message was, they were just so proud of me. They were so happy to see me and acceptance and belonging. And it just went on forever. And
Did
I
you
was,
did you recognize any of these energies? Did it feel familiar? Did you feel like, oh, I remember this place?
yeah, I felt, oh, I remember this place because the thing that was immediately what I said was, man, what was that? That was rough. And because you're like, you pop out and you go back to this incredibly expanded state. And it's like, that was really rough. I was alone and, I had all these bias and I was judging things constantly and carrying some, we all get wounded in life, and I was carrying some bad energy about things, and it's a super burden. It's an amazing burden, and I think the burdens in today's world are incredibly hard on people because we're so cut off. And so yeah, I was flying along, and I was like, "What was that? That was gnarly." And as I flew along some more, and was just loving everything, and it was very confusing. It was like, how in the world did I forget who I really was?
Oh.
How was it that I fell for this trick that I was this person, this single, this separate, this character that you're talking to now? Because I wasn't Bill at all. And I absolutely knew that it had been a game or, a trick or I don't want to put anybody's life, diminish it at all, but almost like a joke. And, I did it to myself. I had this whole thing that I was going through and all these adventures and all this stuff. But anyway, it was over and it wasn't real. And I don't know if that's helpful for your audience, that it's impossible to really understand this, but it's not real. Where we are now and, whatever is coming, whatever comes through the screens or stuff like that, it's really not real. But you're real and there's nothing to worry about. We all go home. So yeah, I was flying along it felt, I mean, I can't really overstate this, but it felt like somebody was pouring honey all over my brain and it was running down through every nerve. It was just this euphoria that, we try, NDEers try, but we never get there. It's just this joy, this release. I felt like all my atoms were expanded and there was this cool breeze blowing through all of them. And it was just this refreshing, something I'd been waiting for, just this release from the container. And I flew along like that. And I was like, this is incredible. This is fantastic. This is awesome. And then I landed. I landed in a place. It was like I had changed dimensions again. And I was now in this solid place. There was indirect lighting and there were tables and gurneys and equipment on the walls. And right in front of me, there were these three little hooded guys, and they were bouncing around and giggling, and they were overjoyed that I was there. And they were asking me things like, how was it? And what did you learn? And what can you tell us? And I'm sure I was looking at them like, what is going on now? And one of them came forward and he looked me up and down. And then he turned to the other two and he said, he doesn't remember us. And they all started giggling. And it was really fun. I wasn't fearful at all. Fear didn't really exist. That is, those low vibrational emotions. They're here, but they don't go with us, if you can imagine that. Things like jealousy and resentment, they're here. They're here for us to experience in these containers, these vessels, these characters we're playing. And yeah, we go back to perfection. It's almost like children, everybody was giggling and everything was lighthearted. And it felt like, when I was telling you that I was out of my body and it was just this euphoria. And I heard another near-death experience lady say this, that she said it was like all my cells were giggling and they were all being tickled by this, euphoric dimension that she was now in. And that's really spot on. And so I was back and forth with them for a little bit. It was fun. It was light. They were like old friends. Like I just got off a roller coaster and they were asking me, how was the roller coaster? What can you tell us? What happened? And then there was this other guy and he was in the background at first. And he was this tall, wispy guy. He had this spinning energy, and I've tried 100 different ways. I've called him a trimmed up Gumby and a walking stick and a spinning whirlpool. But he was like, if you take a glass of water and you spin it and then you get that dancing whirlpool, that's exactly what he looked like. And he had a big smile on his face. And when he moved, it was like he was underwater. That part would move and then other parts would catch up. And it was bizarre. But he had this brightest eyes and he was absolutely stoked that I was there. And when he came forward, as this spinning energy engulfed me, it really affected me. My throat just clamped down and my chest was like overpumped. And I felt like I was going to break down and cry uncontrollably from love. This was the energy of a pure love being, and it was just overwhelming. It was crushing. It was so wonderful. So he came forward and he had this chuckling thing. He was cheerful, and every time I said something, he just chuckled. And the little guys were bouncing around like the Three Stooges, and they were giggling, and it was really light and fun. And so I was thinking, well, I was just in this incredibly divine realm where nothing was impossible. And now I was in this like in between place. It was like a clinic or a facility. And I totally think that's what this whole alien abduction thing is. People having a memory of going back to this place and, having another life, or maybe having this life, gassed up or whatever's going on, keep us on script for whatever we laid out for this life. So I was thinking, okay, this is cool. These guys it's not really organized here. There's a lot of giggling and chuckling, and everybody's super happy about everybody else. And so I said, well, you guys want to, do this review of my life? We've all heard your life flashes before your eyes, or you have to, stand for your deeds. I've heard this since I was a kid. So I had some sort of thought about that. And so I said, do you guys want to get started on that? And the big guy, the tall, wispy guy, he just cracked up. And he thought that was so funny because, I realized I was one life of thousands of lives, and probably associated with him, a higher self that has many lives. And, there's no such thing as time. And so it's all happening at once. And I came in for this event, which was part of what I was supposed to go through in this life. So yeah, I was just this toddler of a soul, and I was, kind of taken over. And fireman in me, I guess. And he thought that was super funny. And he goes, yeah, sure, we can go through a review of your life. How do you want to start? And I thought that was just a really good. Everybody's just such good natured. And I told a few stories. You know, I told about my wife wanted us to live on this island after college. I got this ranger job, and I turned it down and went for another fire job because I was young and wanted the adventure and excitement. But for her, now that I'm almost 70, I think that would have been cool because she wanted that to live on the island by ourselves. But other than that, I just kind of filled in some space, hoping that it would be okay, good enough, you can go. And that didn't happen. He came forward and he said, okay, that's enough. And he said, time to go back. And that just floored me. And the three little guys, it's like they just disappeared. It's like their part was over or something, and they headed off somewhere else in that place. And he came forward, and I was standing there in shock, and I was like, go back. And I was like, I'm not going back there. There's no way. And, I was 38 at the time, had everything going for me, absolutely everything. And the thought of going back was out of the question. That's that's so funny, but it truly was. And I told him I'm not going back there, and he's like, "Yeah, you got to go back. You have things to do, and they're important." And I tried a few things. I told him I was almost 40, and my life's pretty much over. I don't have much more to do back there. I'm kind of this burned over old guy, and he thought that was funny. And I told him, I got lots of friends, but they'll think of me, but they'll be all right. But my mom and dad and my wife will probably be sad. But a couple of weeks and they'll be just fine. And if I don't go back, and he thought that was really funny, so he goes, "No, you're going back." So he came forward, and it was like his intention. It was just his mental intention. The whole room started to spin and break apart. And I felt frequency dropping. I felt a descending feeling. And he kind of evaporated in front of me, spun away, and I dropped away into darkness. And I got down near my body. And just before I went in my body, I had just this horrible feeling of loneliness and dismal and just a place that you didn't want to be. I could feel those energies of fear. Either I was reintegrating with them or something, but I felt all that come back onto me, and it was just devastating. It's like somebody backing a dump truck up and dumping a ton of rocks on you. That's what we're going through here. All of us are going through. It's just an illusion. Everybody's going to be fine someday. But this is really, really rough duty compared to what we are, where we come from, and the euphoric, blissful, joyful beings that we really are.
Yeah. I want to ask a couple of questions about the whole process for you, because I just think what you went through is so fascinating, and I love those little guys in the robes. I really want to meet them someday. When you said you popped out of your body, was that surprising to you, or did you turn around and look at yourself, or did you think, well, this is weird, or did you just sail off and that whole part of your existence was almost immediately forgotten?
I was zooming through stars. That was my first inclination of something had changed. Just like the Star Trek, the front windshield or the viewing
Yeah.
screen.
Uh,
I was zooming through colored stars and just absolutely euphoric. So yeah, as far as and I love those stories where they, like this guy Tony, he gets struck by lightning. The lightning comes through the phone, and he just pops out of his body, and he turns around and he sees his body, and he's like, "Oh crap, I'm dead." But no, I didn't have one of those then. But yeah, I was just flying through stars,
mhm.
and I was no longer Bill. And that was absolutely clear to me that I was not Bill. I was not a human. And that had been kind of a game.
Yeah. So do you look back now and see this as like oh, I don't know, a video game, or some kind of matrix, or something that's constructed as opposed to being authentic?
This place that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
our lives, yeah, it's absolutely a simulation or a hologram. Because I know you don't have time, but there is a whole lot more to my story. My NDE is like 5%. There's this whole
Oh,
thing.
please continue. I want to hear the rest.
Well, there was this whole thing where I went, when I retired, I went looking for answers, and I was around shaman and, ancient people, ancient Mayans and things like that. And I started realizing that the shaman of today, they're leftovers. They understand what we really are from our ancient ancestors, the Egyptians and the Mayans, and going back to Atlantis, which was, a world community. And they, there was tens of thousands of pyramids all over the world. They're not just in a couple of places. And this ancient world civilization that is us, was us, they knew things. So my whole thing has progressed because I asked questions, and that's what the universe wants from us. It wants us to genuinely seek. This whole thing, you knock and the door will be opened. And that's not a bunch of baloney. That they're around us all the time. And when you do genuinely knock and drop everything that you think you know and put yourself out there, everything starts changing. They just start loading you up with experiences. And something that happens to me now, it used to take 30 or 40 minutes, but now it's only like a minute. I'll just go sit down in one of the chairs back there behind me. And just, I do this thing. All I do is I say, let go. I just relax. And, you put your attention right here. And then all this funny things happen. Like the right side of my head gets really heavy and vibrates. And then this starts, the vibrations start. And this whole room starts swirling with this purple and green and gold, like the aurora borealis. And you can push past that. And then there are these grids, and they are mathematically perfect grids, and they're in panels. I know this sounds ridiculous.
No, it doesn't. I'm completely following you and I totally get it. So please continue. I love this.
Well, they're at angles, and they're all around all of us. It's like we're all in our own little, what do they call that when the kids put those things on?
Oh, virtual reality.
Yeah, it's like we're all in our own virtual reality. And
Okay.
and the pyramid structure, I'm pretty sure, sort of it negates that illusion, this life illusion. And that's why we can, when you get in the what's it called, the main pyramid, the king's chamber, and you get in the sarcophagus, and there's a lot of vibrational things that are built into that room. And you can transcend this illusionary place. And our ancient ancestors, they knew this, and it was common knowledge. So yeah, it's definitely an illusion. I had this thing. It was about 2 years ago. I had this thing where it was a series of like episodes, something I was being shown, and if I'd feel this heaviness, and I'd go, oh, okay, I gotta lie down, and I'd go lie down, and then I would come out, and I would be in this giant like vortex and going somewhere, usually up, and then I would end up in some other place. And I was like this ball, and by thinking about something, I could shoot around. And it had to do with a firefighter thing, but I went to this a number of incidents, but one of them was really powerful. And there was a helicopter. I ended up in this valley, and there was all these other balls around me, and they were all excited, souls, orbs. There was all this chatter, and they were all excited that there was this event that was coming. And then there was a helicopter across the canyon, and I knew, I've been in a lot of helicopters, and something said I needed to be up there. So I thought about it, and then I was shot over there, and then I was just below in the skids, and it's flying along, and there's another firefighter there, and he's just sitting there. And then the pilot and the nurse just came flying out of the helicopter really fast, like just super fast, and they flew into us. And then we all flew to the ground, and we went to all those other orbs, those souls, and it was this huge welcoming, this outpouring of love. And then this helicopter went on, and I was, we had gone back to the ground, and I was looking, and I'm like, there's nobody in that helicopter. I saw the pilot dressed in a pilot outfit. She came spinning out, and so did the nurse. And so I was thinking, there's nobody in that helicopter. And then it started to crash, and things happen really fast on the other side. So this crash was like super slow motion, and it went down and crashed. And then there was all this emotion over this, that these humans had died, but they were fine. They were welcomed by their ancestors, their families, and showered with love, and just containers, went to the ground. And, my wife started saying, okay, look, when these things happen to you, type it up. So, I woke up on the couch, sweating, heart pounding, because it was really powerful emotions. That's what the other side is. It's emotions. And I had to get my wits about me. And so I wrote the whole thing down, that it was red and white helicopter, and that there was a female pilot and a nurse, and the pilot's initials, I knew those, and a firefighter. And they crossed over. And these things were happening exactly 7 days before. I'd been to a number of fires and some other things. And she goes, okay, well, this is a doozy, and I said, you're telling me it was really rough on me. And 7 days later, a medevac helicopter in Ohio crashed in the woods, and the firefighter, the pilot, and the nurse all died. And yeah, well, I saw that, and Leah goes, well, what are you going to look for it? I said, I won't have to. The way these things go, it'll show up. And it showed up on some firefighter page on Facebook, and there was a headlines, and I wasn't even surprised.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very powerful. And the emotions from that, this lady told me that you must be an old soul, because the weight from everybody's emotions who responded to that event came to you. You're involved somehow in this, helping this crossover. And yeah, it's really, really powerful, really strong. And it's really hard on us here, but nobody died. They went home and they were welcomed by hundreds of, happy souls.
Mhm.
That's a true story.
Yeah. That must be quite the challenge for you to integrate that into just this daily life we have here, to have those types of experiences. How do you deal with that?
Well, it was going along, and there was one day I woke up outside. I was lying down on the driveway. I was out splitting wood or something, and I was going through like one dream after one thing after another. I saw cars rolling and people falling out of them, and I'm flying along with this horrific accident, and saw people falling off of things, and I'm flying along with them. And I went in the house and I said, guys, you guys got to lighten up with this this stuff. I can't handle it. And it stopped.
Oh,
And that's all we have to do, really. That is all we have to do, is
yeah.
ask for help.
Yeah. So would your guess be that you're still helping in the non-physical? It's just that you're not watching it in the physical now?
Yeah, there's we are these huge, incredible beings, and we have thousands of lives, and you and I are each one of those. And we've got this soul, and that's collecting all the data from all these lives, and organizing that. And that's not just data, that is full personalities that are, from that previous life. It's a full personality that is on the soul. And then there's the higher self, and this goes on, to this incredibly expanded, oversoul, and eventually, we're all one, and we call that God. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot going on with us. We're into a lot of things, and we're just one life that's been scripted or designed for a certain number of experiences. So does that help?
Yeah, it does. I am always curious. I've been super interested in NDEs for decades now. It just was fascinating to me, and I felt like it was the most honest clue that I could get about what our reality system really is, like what we're really doing here. And the thing that I'm curious about is why it happened, for instance, to you. Why does it happen to a person? Do you feel like you scripted it, that if I get to this point and I haven't kind of woken up, give me an NDE? Or do you think it was a foregone conclusion? Why do you think it happened to you in particular? Because it seems like you have an expanded awareness now since then that the rest of us don't have. So why do you think it was you, and how do you think that fits into your soul journey for this incarnation?
That's a good question, Kimberly. That's good job. So what I think with me is that, like I said, I think I'm an old soul, and I think it, like you said, there was this opportunity. An NDE is an invitation. It's an invitation to look further, and we're supposed to, if we take the invitation, we're going to put ourselves in the hands of creation, of the divine. And that's kind of what I did when I started going down to Central America and just driving around. And I did this for years. And I ended up, with some really wild people that helped me a lot. And it continued to open. And the last thing I heard was from the spiritual leader of this community down in Costa Rica, and he said, when you go home, you need to take this thing Kundalini seriously. They're not going to tell you what to do. They never would. They, in these villages and stuff, they'll lead you to the door, and then you can open it and walk through. But they're not going to lead you by the hand through into any new discoveries about yourself. You have to do those on your own, or it's not legit. And he told me, you need to because I was seeing all these grids in the jungle and things moving, like giant caterpillars and stuff moving in the jungle that weren't there in the physical, and these giant grids. And he said, you need to understand pranic energy and Kundalini, because this energy that we all have in the base of our spine, with you, it's waking up and it's moving up through the chakras. And, when that happens, it clears out all this old energy, emotional baggage. And when that's gone, we start, reconnecting with who we really are. And once you deal with the fear and understand that modern man has no idea what we are. And once you put the fear of that away and the shock of that away, then it's a kind of a heaven on earth existence, because this bliss just pours in and the vibrations pour in. And when I look up in the sky, it's like I'm in a snow globe, and just this rolling energy and all these little dots of light. And those are all souls. And, consciousness is what the universe is. All these energetic little dots of light that are around all of us, cheering us on every minute. And I'm going to go to movies. That's what that movie, The Truman Show, is about. It's the true man show. What's really going on here is, there's all these orchestrations and just these bleachers, stadiums full of souls watching us and cheering us. They'll show up for big moments, like that big recital or the wedding day or something. They love us and they're interested in our adventure. And I'll go another movie with my NDE. And a lot of NDEs will fit into this, but the Wizard of Oz is all about, it's an NDE. Dorothy, which her name means gift from God. Our lives, our earthly lives are a gift from God. Dorothy, she lives in kind of a crummy place, black and white, not a lot going on. And there's some mean people that want to hurt her dog. And then the storm comes and she gets in the farmhouse and goes up the vortex. I can attest to these things. And the window comes off and it hits her in the head. And she falls on the bed and she starts having this separation. You can see it in the scene. This lighter version of her peels away and the physical body stays there. And when the house lands, she goes over to the door and she opens it, and it's nothing but music and color and water and giant flowers. And it's absolutely, she's in a near-death experience. And to make it even funner, she has these three little giggling munchkins. They're very joyful and playful, and they come up to her and, the Lollipop Guild. And that's exactly what I experienced. Just these they were playful, almost mischievous, little joyful, loving guys. And she sees a few of those, and Glinda shows up, and she's this beautiful purple green orb. And
oh gosh, you're just reminded me of that. Yes, she comes in as an orb. I never connected that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's not, I didn't, yeah, I have a lot of these things, but I'm not sitting around thinking about them. They're just coming in.
Right.
And they're just downloading. And yeah, she comes in and she's Dorothy's, gift from God, the human being. She's the higher self, and she gets her squared away, gets her on the road, and she's always there when she needs her. She just has to ask, if the witch is giving her a hard time. Glinda's right there. And then she gets her on her journey, the hero's journey. And she goes with these three characters: the Scarecrow, who needs a brain, and the Tin Man needs a heart, and the Cowardly Lion needs some courage. And so in our journey, this is what I get clearly from it. In our journey, if we go with that divine side of our mind, that right brain that's connected to home, connected to flow and creativity, if we choose that sweet side and not the left brain, me first, what about me? How about me? I want mine. That's the left physical brain. We go with that right brain and we live our lives from the intelligence of the heart and we proceed with courage without fear, then we get to go home. And there's no place like home. That's what that story tells me.
Yeah, that's been beautiful. I'm going to never see that movie and not think of your version in those points. So my question now is, you were up talking to your fun little friends and the spinning man, and they said it's time to go back. And you said, I'm not going back there. No way. Why do you think there is here? Why is this reality system in place? And why on earth would we ever come here? Because you can't step a soul into a body. We have to agree. So
Right.
what do you think we're doing here? What's this all about?
We're learning. And this is the Earth School. And it's a school of hard knocks and where we learn by experience because experience is the best teacher. And so we go through these experiences, these learning lessons as a person with something to lose. We don't want to lose our life. We want to live forever, and we don't want to be diminished in our circles, society and friends and stuff, the ego. And yeah, we have to navigate our challenges along with all of the challenges that are built into us, the energies that are scripted, in our birth chart, astrology, that stuff is absolutely spot on.
It is. It's amazing. When you get into it, it is. It's almost freakish.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, for people that aren't having experiences, you can just look at that and say, this crazy Bill Leston guy, he's not so crazy because he can't really explain this. The world is like a mathematical grid, and if you land on this place at this date and time, you're going to have these energies etched on your character for this round. This is what you're going to be.
And don't you think that we choose the point of our incarnation as well? It's like, okay, now I'm going in now because this is going to support and serve me, these energies in what I have chosen for my life path.
Yeah, yeah, we absolutely do. And I think this round, obviously what's going on right now is incredibly huge. This awakening thing. 2012 wasn't the end of the world. It was the beginning of a new human being with more energy coming into them. And, we have these words for it, climate change or global warming. The frequency of the planet is increasing. And the sun is vibrating faster than it used to. I can testify to that. So yeah, this is this is a really, really harsh round. And people like yourself who are stepping forward to help others, and all of you are so committed. You're so passionate. You're so serious about what you're doing. It's because it's coming from that divine you that says, all right, we got to get in there. We got to win this one. And I talk about movies and that leads people to this conspiracies and stuff and whatever. You can go wherever you want with that. But a few years ago I was going to go speak at Ions, and I was kind of leaving these things out. I said, I don't want to talk about this. It really opens the doors. Who's making the movies? What's the message? And I said, well, heck with it. I'm in my 60s. Go if there's something to fear, whether you'll find out. So I made the PowerPoint and I got it all done. And I sleep outside ever since all this weird stuff. I sleep under the stars. And I went outside and I was sitting there looking at the sky going, I feel pretty good about this. We'll get this done. And some people will think differently and it'll help somebody somewhere, that we're not all alone and all this stuff is happening to us randomly, that there is a plan, and to calm down and to just trust the process. And so I'm sitting there thinking, right on, dude. You put yourself out there, and somewhere your consciousness slips, and the whole sky opened up, and there was this beautiful gold woman, and it was like what's going on behind you with that pulsing light. the whole sky was pulsing and roaring, and everything was shaking. And she looked super happy, and her arms, what she had these wings, and her arms were swinging around, and she was pointing behind her, and I was like, I'm not gonna, the whole earth was shaking, the house, the deck, everything was just roaring. And I go, okay, I'm gonna hold it together. I'm not gonna miss this. Something big's going on here. This golden woman had, imperfect in every way, had filled the sky. And I looked her right in her golden eyes, and she was absolutely stoked. Absolutely. It was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. And I was like, and I just relaxed, and everything was shaking and everything. And then it just closed. And it ended. If you've ever been close to lightning when it hits near you, you'll hear that and it'll echo. And it ended with this incredible lightning sound. And it just echoed all through this whole area. And everything was completely still. And all that, whatever was going on, I was in another dimension because the dogs were all asleep, the ducks were asleep on the lake, the deer were lying down where they always sleep, and nobody heard anything but except me. And I said, now, and that's, to me, that's the goddess Isis from Egyptian mythology. This whole golden thing, she looks exactly like the pictures of her. For me, I sat there and I said out loud, I said, now I know why our ancestors called them gods,
Yeah.
because there was absolutely no doubt. Even though she was a sweetheart in every way, but her power, it reminded me of like a forest fire, when we have to back off and get in a safety zone, and the 80, 100-foot flames, burn around you. The ground is shaking. You can't talk to the guys next to you. Just this roaring sound. And that's exactly what it was like, that kind of natural power. Our world is an amazing place. It really is. And the universe is, it's there for all of us. But when we move on from here, there's never anything to worry about.
Yeah, that was a beautiful story. It had me mesmerized. Thank you for sharing that. What I want to know is, you come from a background of firefighting. Those are manly men. I love firefighters. They're just always so great. Not exactly the most spiritually minded. They're dudes, they're dudes being dudes, which I love. It's
Right,
fabulous.
right.
How do you work within, I mean, I'm sure you still have friends that are, from your days as a firefighter. How do you integrate everything that happens to you with the world around you? Like, we live in it's a very dimensional place where not everyone is connected like you are. How do you do that?
Well, I know who they are, eternally. I know the big picture of who they are. I might have my friends, like Mac and Vinny and Steve, and we have our relationships here, but there's this way bigger being that we all are. And we're all on the other side, kind of amused by the goings on here. So yeah, my buddy Mike might say, you've lost your mind. And I would just laugh and love him,
Mhm.
because, and you hit it on the nail on the head. Those experiences, it's not a burden. It's an unburdening, because it's true, and that we are as far from understanding who we are as possible. And that's all part of, the way this world cycles through golden age and, bronze age. And we're coming out of an iron age, dark age, the darkest times. And we're climbing back to another golden age. It'll be, 2 dozen centuries or so before we all talk like me and think like you, but we'll get there. And I don't know, don't need to really react to the circumstances of the here and now in the physical, if that makes any sense. There's still the connection, there's still the love that's eternal, all of us have for each other. And whatever happens here, it's like I said, it's just kind of a game.
Yeah, an interesting game. It's a tough gig, like you said. It's a
Yeah,
tough gig.
I read this thing once with Eckhart Tolle, and he said that don't take anything personal, even if somebody comes up and shoots you in the face. Don't take it personal. Don't react. And I remember reading that in the 90s, and I'm like, somebody shooting me in the face, I kind of draw the line there. And, I don't anymore, because I was, I'm, like I said, I'm almost 70, but I was 15 2 weeks ago. And this life is a really good illusion, but we can really make some big strides in our soul growth by not reacting to the horrors of this place and keep your wits about you and, love everybody, love every living thing.
Yeah, it is pretty, it's a magnificent reality. And I am just so in love with Mother Earth. This earth is incredible and all the diversity and the plant life. And it's just really spectacular. I mean, it's quite the ride. And what I could say is if I died, 5 minutes from now, what I would say is, wow, did I learn a lot? We learned so much. I mean, it's so rich, it's so hard. It's so fun, it's so funny, it's so tragic, it's all of that. And
Right.
every step of the way, it's one big fat lesson after another.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah. So I would imagine that you're not afraid of dying.
No, ma'am.
And I have a question for you that, is interesting for me because I agree that we are moving into a golden age here on Earth, and I'm so excited about it. And I can see it in the people around me, like all of a sudden someone's seeing Aunt Betty in the kitchen and they're shocked because Aunt Betty died 10 years ago, but they're seeing her. I mean, we're all developing these senses. I see it in myself. My level of telepathy now is so much higher than it was 10 years ago. So we're all ratcheting up, and it's exciting to me where we're going, where the planet's going to be in 150, 200 years. My question for you is, would you come back? Would you come back when, let's say, 200 years from now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think we come back, that movie, Groundhog Day.
Mm-hmm.
That's all about his choices. And once he starts making those higher vibrational choices, he gets to go home. He gets to leave the town. And they figured that was some math people did, and they figured that was 7,000 lives. And then the producer said that they were going for 15,000 lives. And you get around the Dolores Canyon people with this hypnosis thing, regression, and they're 20, 30,000 lives into some of their. So yeah, we're coming and going all the time. And we come down here to mix it up, to rock and roll, to have some adventures, and we're back home before we know it.
And it seems so long on this side. On the other side, it's like this. It's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that those the guys in the robes, the fun little guys, and I hope I meet them someday. They sound like they're just a kid. Do you think that those were your gang, like your buddies? Because they were so familiar with you and they were so tickled that you didn't recognize them.
Yeah, we've talked about this. This is a ride, and I think they are the guys that run the ride, the carnies, and that goes back to the alien abduction thing. That they when we need a correction in our body, you've heard of miracle healings and stuff. They go in and it's like, oh, okay, we don't want this to happen, and so they make a correction. And sometimes we get our mindset here that we're going to change careers, and it's like, okay, we don't want that to happen, so our mind gets changed. And if you watch that movie, The Adjustment Bureau,
Haven't seen that one.
it's with Matt Damien. It's really good. It's really well done. It's one of my favorite movies that seem to be talking to us. And yeah, these guys in these like black hoods and capes and stuff are changing the minds of some of his associates to keep him on his path, because he's got a presidential campaign or something. And it's a great story. But yeah, there's these guys that are behind the scenes, and they're keeping things going. And so yeah, they knew me. I was still fuzzy. And if you listen to these stuff by Campbell, I think I can't think of his first name. His last name is Campbell, and he's got this whole story about how we download our personality and we go into the higher self and all this stuff. And yeah, I think those guys are kind of running the ride. And in that, I keep doing this movie thing because it helps people they look at it and they go, oh my goodness, this is speaking directly to me. And it's supposed to, when you're ready to see it, it's there. It came from creativity of somebody, from creation. And in that movie, Communion is supposed to be a horror movie, but those little guys are in that movie. The guys I saw looked exactly like that. And if you turn the soundtrack away, because there's in these horror movies that there's certain tones that can just entrain fear, and off we go. So if you turn that down and just watch those guys, they're dancing around with Christopher Walken, they're high-fiving him, they're yucking it up, and he's fearful throughout the movie, and at the end he realizes what he really is. There's a scene where he walks. Somebody says he's going into a spaceship, but what I see is he walks out into a field and he steps into the light and he changes dimensions. And
Yeah.
then he's in this facility where everything's joyous, and he figures it out. And at the end, he and his wife are talking directly to the camera, and they're saying things like, if you are seeing beings like this, that it's not a curse, that it's more that you are chosen. And it's a really clear dialogue to relax, that you're an advanced soul, you've been here a long time, and you've cleared up a lot of energy, and it's time for you to get invited into understanding what you really are, and to take the invitation without fear. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's such a lovely way to look at it. I would imagine that for you, life right now is probably just this really interesting journey.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love it. There's never anything to fear.
Talking with you has been fabulous. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have a website, anything that you want to share that we want to find out more about you, or are you just kind of hanging out and enjoying life right now?
Just hanging out.
Okay, great. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was fascinating. I'm going to be thinking about this conversation for a few days now.
Good, good.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Kimberly.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one, or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.